Okay, so basically, this video is going to explain a little bit about the Jamaica Neighborhood Plan, which is a city proposed zoning change for the neighborhood of Jamaica, Queens, New York. So basically, it's a rezoning that's supposed to affect about 300 blocks in the area of downtown Jamaica specifically, and some surrounding streets and areas around there. So if you look here, it says here that the Jamaica Neighborhood Plan will provide a vision for the future of the neighborhood. Proposed proposal would update zoning to help Jamaica grow and thrive with up to 12,000 new homes, including around 4,000 permanently income restricted affordable homes. So I'll get into exactly what that means in a 230 block area of Jamaica. Okay, so uh, basically, it's going through the process of the ULURP, which is a Universal Land Use Review Procedure, which basically goes to the city council and they have community hearings and essentially it goes through the process of being reviewed by the city and the community, and it will ultimately get passed or not approved. Um, so basically, I got some resources here for you to take a look at, which I think is actually pretty helpful. So first, obviously, this is the website here. This is jamaicaplan.nyc. So you can go here and take a look, and obviously they're going to have some great resources. They have the application, which you can track, and the plan, the proposal of what it's going to change to. A couple of other maps here too. You can check out. I'll leave links for this in the description. But so if you look at this, this is the proposed zoning framework, and this is what it would change to. Now, what's interesting is if you look at what's currently there. So this is Zola. This is uh, the city website for zoning and land use. I'll also leave a link for this. Now, in the filter, I've already selected the proposed pending zoning map amendment. So this is the Jamaica Neighborhood Plan, which you can see here. So this whole area is going to get changed. Most of it will be upzoned. You're going to have most of it's going to be residential, but you do have some other areas here that are strictly going to be manufacturing, like they're upzoning a manufacturing district to include more uses for manufacturing uses, just to kind of broaden what you can use for manufacturing purposes in these zonings. That's part of the rezoning too. But the vast majority, if you take a look, is going to be for residential. So anything here, and this is an interactive map that was made by the Department of City Planning. Basically, it's like an overlay over a Google map. Pretty cool, actually. You see the map, you see exactly where the boundaries are of the rezoning, and you could actually put in an address and you can see if it's going to be inside the rezoning area or not. So, for example, let's do 14617 Hillside Avenue. See that populates, and that will see that little dot there. That is going to be in the rezoning, right? So, and when you select the area, like or even select the property, you're going to see what it's going to go to, what they're proposing. So they're proposing a C4-4D, which is an upzone from what the current use is, which if you go to the Zola map and you can search that same address, 146-17 Hillside, see if it comes up. It does. Um, that currently is an R7A. So you do have so R7, basically anything with the R means residential, C means commercial, M means manufacturing. Those are the three basic groups of New York City zoning. Now, this also has a commercial overlay, right? So if you look here, you have R7A as the current zoning, then you have a commercial overlay of C2-4. Now, the proposed zoning, which as mentioned is going to be C4-4D, basically that also is commercial, but it also includes a residential equivalent. which, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be an R8A, if I'm not mistaken. Let me take a quick look here. I should have did this before, but it's okay. We'll do it. We'll do it live here. So what I'm doing is, let me move this. Interesting. Um, so the city is going to be updating all their records because of the City of Yes that recently passed in December of 2024. Um, but yeah, so that's going to be updated too. But I do have a great resource. My website actually has the new um, FAR, floor area ratio, so you can take a look at what the zoning currently is, the new zoning that changed, because a lot of zoning did change in December of 2025. So to find out what the equivalent of C4-4D is, I'm going to go to the basically you can just Google, like, you can Google that zoning, and then it'll eventually get you to one of these city planning pages here. So right, so C4-4D is an equivalent of an R8A. So basically, right now you're in an R7, as I mentioned. Now, if you go to my website and go to resources, I actually have the updated FARs. So we're basically going from an R7A. If you look here, is going to be a 4 for a standard floor area ratio, and a 5.01 is going to be if you include affordable housing, universal affordability preference. It's going to be UAP. So you have to build a certain amount of affordable housing in order for you to get that bump up. Now, C4-4D is going to go to R8A, like we just said. So you're going to get a bump up in zoning, basically from 4 to 6.02. And if you do the affordable, which you're going to have to do the affordable if the zoning passes, I'll explain that a bit later, it's actually going to go to 7.2. So essentially, you're going to go from either a 4 or a 5, really a 5 if you really want to get technical, 5.01 to a 7.2, which is significant. So that's just one area. If you look back at the map here, you see that there are different proposed zonings all throughout the map. So you have, Jamaica Core, which what I call Jamaica Core. This is like real downtown Jamaica, Jamaica Avenue, Suction Boulevard area, Archer, where you have all the hotels going up, and going down to, I would say, down to Merrick, um, is really Jamaica Core, and that's really where the most density is for downtown Jamaica. And you'll see that this proposal here is going to go to a C6-4, which again, if you want to check out what that equivalent is, C6-4 is going to be a dash 4. Here we go. That's going to be the equivalent of an R10, which is just significant. So in an R10, you're going to have R10, you're going to have a 10 FAR, and a 12 if you include uh, affordable housing. So basically, if I didn't mention it before, this FAR, this floor area ratio, is basically you're going to multiply what the lot area is. So if there's a 10,000 square foot lot, you're basically going to multiply that by 10. And that's going to give you the amount of total buildable square footage that you can provide on that particular lot. There are some other considerations as far as, you know um, the shape of the lot, if it's a corner or a mid block, and also um, things like if it's facing a wide street or not. Those are all other considerations, but generally speaking, these are the floor area ratios that you're going to be uh, provided to as of right, especially on the standard of what you can build without having to do any sort of variance or any sort of thing like that to try to get more air rights essentially, or billable square feet. So that's interesting. What another interesting part of, or section I should say, are going to be these streets kind of away from core Jamaica, right? From Jamaica and Archer. So the zoning comes down even down to Sutphin, comes down to Guyar Brewer, comes down to Merrick. Now these are very, very interesting, and I'll choose one of these areas here. For example, this section here of Sutphin Boulevard, which is basically around 107th Avenue going down to 109th. And currently, if you go back and go double check to see what it is currently. Currently, this is the same section here. This is an R5D. Go back to my website, and R5D gives you two FAR, 2.0 FAR, either the standard or the QRS, which is a whole another story. Qualifying residential site, either way, it gives you two. Some of them actually give you a bump up if the property is or can be considered a qualifying residential site. You can go from 1.5 to 2. This one is 2 for either way. It's going to be a 2.0 FAR. So the proposal actually is going to make this an R7A. So you're going to have a jump from R5D to R7A, which is huge. So basically, R5D, like I mentioned, was 2. R7A is a 4 and a 5.01. And again, you're going to have to, more than likely, a developer, I should say, will build a 5.01. They could also build a 4 and still include affordable housing in that 4, but more than likely, you're going to maximize the amount of building that you could build and just go ahead for the maximum amount, which is going to be the universal affordability preference, which has a mandate to put in affordable housing if you want to get that bump up, but you're also going to be mandated to do affordable housing anyway if this passes, because what it's called is mandatory inclusionary housing. I'll get to that in a second. So basically, I mean, you're going to go from, going back to the example that I said, if you had a 10,000 square foot lot, right, in let's just say that this property right here, let's just say this is 10,000 square feet. This is 10704 Sutphin Boulevard, right? Let's just say that's 10,000 square feet. Today, at the time of this recording, that property has 2 FAR. So you could build 20,000 buildable square feet. You could build a new building with 20,000 square feet of residential units. And the standard for each unit is going to be 680 square feet. So, which is the average it needs to be of each unit. I'm just going to do it on a calculator. So 20,000, and you're going to divide that by 680. You can have about 29 units. Now, if this passes, if the Jamaica Neighborhood Plan passes, and I mentioned this is going to actually turn to R7A, which again, likely a developer would build 5.01. Now that basically turns to 50,000 buildable square feet residential. You can also have, there's also going to be a commercial overlay, which isn't included in this map, but there will be a commercial overlay. So you can have the residential on top, commercial on the bottom. So that's 50,000 divided by 680. That's 73. So you went from 29 units to 73 units. That's a 150% increase, which again is pretty significant. And that's just, I gave 2 examples. There's other examples. Some of them are even more extreme. If you go down Guy R. Brewer, we're talking, 3-4 times as much. 150 is a lot. 1.5x is a lot. There's 2, there's 3, 4x in certain spots. So, not only is this, I think, a win for a property owner who's potentially looking to develop their own property, sell the property. So, in theory, their property as a development site, at the very least, is going to be worth more after this zoning passes, if it passes in its current form. That's just now. That doesn't mean that every property is going to be worth more. For example, if there's, let's say, I don't know, let's say there's a Walgreens, that the owner has a property and it's being leased out to a Walgreens. The income that the Walgreens produces may actually make that property more valuable as a Walgreens versus as a development site. But generally speaking, there's going to be quite a few properties here that are actually going to be worth more after the zoning passes as development sites at the very least. So, it's going to be super interesting. Now, going back to, again, this is my website. So, interesting. What I mentioned before is the mandatory inclusionary housing. So, if this passes, and the reason why, one of the main reasons why this is even happening, why the city proposed this, is because they're trying to incorporate more permanent affordable housing, which is what they mentioned basically on the top of their webpage, right? They're trying to including around 4,000 permanently income restricted affordable homes. So how are they going to do that? Basically, if this passes, anything that's residential, that has a residential component that can be built, is going to be mandatory inclusionary housing. So basically, that means that a certain amount or a set aside of the units, the billable square feet or the units, however you want to phrase it, has to be, they're going to be income restricted. They're going to be quote unquote affordable homes. Now, there are different options. I'm back on my website here. I have a couple of charts, including the floor area ratio. I have some information on the tax abatement, the 45X that replaced the 421A. And I have some info on the mandatory inclusionary housing. So basically, there are four options, and the city council essentially chooses one of these options when they're about to pass a rezoning. They say, "Hey, I like this option for my community, and this is the option that you have to abide by in order for this thing to pass." And for specifically for the Jamaica Neighborhood Plan and other rezonings, generally speaking, too, the city councils tend to lean towards option one, right? Option one or two, but really more option one. Option one means that you have to set aside, a developer has to set aside 25% of the residential floor area for households that make up to 60% area median income, which is the AMI, or lower. That's why I said up to. So 60% or lower. Then, on top of that, there are no more than three income bands, 10% floor area ratio, I'm sorry, floor area at 40% AMI. So out of that 60%, 10% has to be at 40% AMI, and no income band can be above 130 AMI. So, in the past, 130 just it seemed, I mean, at 130 you're talking about market rate, right? So it just didn't make sense, and that's why the 45X actually eliminated 130 as an AMI band. Um, so you can't even, I mean, that 130 didn't make any sense to me anyway. If you're trying to build an affordable house or affordable apartment, I should say, 130 AMI level just didn't make sense. Now, what does that translate to as far as your monthly rent? So, Metropolitan Realty Exemptions a couple months ago sent out this chart. I don't believe HPD has it updated yet, but these guys, they're pretty on the ball. So I'm trusting this source. So basically, every year, HUD releases what the AMI is for every area in the country, if I'm not mistaken. So for New York City, right, they have a certain number, and then that percentage of the annual income, the area median income, and the rents are going to be based off of that number. So at 60, right, at a studio apartment at 60 is going to be $1,700. One bedroom is going to be $1,800. Two bedrooms is going to be 21, basically 2,200. So, and that's at 60. At the ones at 40, obviously a little bit are going to be, more reasonable. I'd say significantly more. If you look at a two bedroom under 40 AMI, 1458 versus 2,200, right? So, I mean, it's debatable if that's actually affordable, especially the 60. I would say the 40 is okay. The 60, it's definitely going to be, it's going to be cheaper than, what the market rate in that building is going to be, 110%, you know. So, that's debatable. Honestly, I mean, even if you look, so if you look at the 100% AMI, market rate's probably going to be more in line with this, right? So, in other words, that 25% affordable two bedrooms are going to be 2187. Meanwhile, the rest of the 75%, that same two bedroom is going to be 3,600. They're probably going to be in line with the 100%. Now, these are going to be new buildings, obviously. They're going to be nice buildings, amenities, gym, um, maybe parking. Parking's optional now, so maybe they'll provide parking, maybe they won't. Um, but again, there's, rooftop decks. I'm pretty sure you've seen like these new buildings with all the amenities. Um, Potentially, they'll have doormen or doorwomen. Um, and these are nice spaces. So, a two-bedroom for $2,187, if you consider what you're getting, not horrible. Now, we'll say space-wise, it's probably not going to be great. You know, um, you know, each apartment, like I mentioned, the average has to be 680 square feet, the average. So there could be some, a studio could still be, 400 square feet, and then the two-bedroom could be 600 square feet. As long as it averages out, all the units in that property in the building average out to 680, that's how you're going to get the total unit count of the building. Um, so yeah, that's basically it. It's going through, like I mentioned, the ULERP process. You can go to JamaicaPlan.nyc and kind of follow it yourself. They just had a city planning commission public hearing uh, this week, as of the date of this recording. Today is July 3rd. This was yesterday in the city in Manhattan. I attended a couple of these already. They're pretty interesting. There is some opposition to it. As you can imagine, people are kind of concerned about gentrification, which I get. It's definitely a real concern. But I think overall, I think the plan is good. I think locking in at least somewhat affordable apartments is better than not, in my opinion. Being able to build more is also important. So, as mentioned, this is going to go through the uniform. I'm sorry, it's going through the ULERP process, and typically that lasts about 6 months, and it started in March. So we're looking at potentially this thing passing in October or November, um, and maybe even closer to October, honestly. So at the end of March. So probably October, November, maybe even before Thanksgiving. This thing you should have a vote on, and I think it's more than likely going to pass, considering that this is being proposed by the city, and it's the consensus, at least from the city council, is that it's it's a go. Like they want to support this, but they just want to make sure that they have the um, affordable component locked in. And the Queensborough president, Donovan Richards, um, is very adamant about option one. He likes option one, which again is going to be 25% at 60% AMI, this option right here. So as long as that's met, and there's some other things in there too, but I think that's the main sticking point. I think it passes. So um, so yeah, I hope this helps. You can use my website. I'll leave a link for it as well at ccdrealestate.com. Um, Actually has some other things here about other rezonings. You have the Jamaica Neighborhood Plan, Long Island City Neighborhood Plan, Atlantic Avenue Mixed Use Plan. I think that already passed. Bushwick, this is kind of stalled out. This one, this Bronx Metro North Station Plan, I think is also in the process. And there's another one in Midtown Manhattan, which I didn't include here. My focus is primarily going to be Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx. Heavy focus on Jamaica, Queens, um, which is actually where I currently live. Um, Grew up, went to school, the whole bit. So that's a whole special interest in Jamaica, Queens here. So yeah, go to my website. You can kind of take a look at some stuff here, like I mentioned, of information on the current changes for the floor area ratios for any property. At least if you know what the new zoning is, or the current zoning, you can kind of take a look and see what you can build now based on the city of Yes, which again basically changed floor area ratios, I would say, for every property in New York City, right? Because everything here from R11, R1-1 to R12, that's, essentially at least all residential property in New York City was affected by a change by the city of Yes in some way, shape, or form. So, um, yeah, that chart's pretty helpful. I actually find myself going to it a lot just to double check, and then you can get the area median income rent chart. You can always come here and take a look. I got some stuff on the city. Yes, just basic stuff. So the city, yes, like I mentioned, did the universal affordability preference, which basically gives a bump up, a blanketed bump up to any property that's zoned R6 and up if you include a certain amount of affordable housing, right? Qualifying residential site also gives a bump up for the lower densities from R1 through R5, but you have to meet certain criteria in order to get that. Parking mandates have essentially been waived if the property is located in a transit zone. It's either been waived completely or reduced. And also, what's very interesting is that they've green lit ancillary dwelling units, or ADUs, more commonly referred to as accessory dwelling units, but the city decided to go to ancillary, which basically, gives a homeowner the ability and the opportunity to convert uh, a garage into an apartment. Also, an attic technically, and also technically, it doesn't legalize basements. But if you have like a cellar that's could also be basically approved by DOB, this gives it also the ability to be um, essentially be legalized as another dwelling unit. Now, I think especially for places like Queens, I don't think really that's going to fly because a lot of these basements are below grade completely, and it's just the points of egress and everything else. I think is going to be kind of difficult to legalize, but backyards to convert, even build, you can convert a garage, but if I'm not mistaken, you can also build a new structure in the backyard, and essentially going to be up to an 800 square foot apartment. So 800 square feet, you could put two bedrooms. Um, and then obviously there's other logistics there, plumbing, this and that. But at least the option is there. I'll probably make a video with that one too. But those are some very interesting things here. So check out the website. I'll leave links for other things as well that I kind of spoke about. But I hope this video helps. And yeah, you can reach out to me anytime. Contact will be as well in the description. And yeah, take care.